Good day, stoners, and welcome to another juicy episode of the Turning Stones podcast. It's been a little while, I know it has, and we've missed you. Sam and I have missed you, and speaking of Sam, welcome. How you going?
Terry, yeah, good, very good. Yourself?
Can't complain, mate. Really good and glad to be stuck back into it again, and let's do it. Today's episode, it's going to be a bit of a special one because it's quite relevant in today's world. And it's been floating around the media for a little while, and it's all about the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine. So, yeah, there's been a fair few headlines of this particular vaccine as of late, good and bad. But we thought, you know what, let's just enlighten the stoners and let them know exactly the ins and outs of this vaccine, and obviously some expert commentary as well. In regards to, I guess if there's any pros and cons with it, and if there's any risks and what those risks are, if any. And basically, let's just go through a few independent analyses of the vaccine. And then hopefully after this episode does air and you all listen to it or watched it on YouTube, you basically can form a bit of an opinion as to what your thoughts on it are, and hopefully maybe, you're thinking, it's probably just going to be the same as all the other vaccines that are going around. But yeah, I mean, are you getting the vaccine? Well, that's one question you have to ask. But the other question you probably are wondering as well is, do I get to pick which vaccine? Because I'm guessing right now with all the media that's gone around, probably a lot of people are going to hesitate to get this AstraZeneca. Just to, I don't want to upset you stoners, but unfortunately, you don't actually have a choice. So what we're going to do today for you guys is give you a bit of confidence in this vaccine, because we've done a bit of research. We're not biased. We're not paid by Oxford, but it doesn't look as bad as the media are portraying. And as we've always told you, as we've always educated you, don't listen to the bloody media. Sam, your thoughts before we get stuck into it?
Spot on, Terry. That's the key point I think to take out of most, of our podcast. Don't listen to the media, but it's interesting because it's been all over the media, and of course the media is going to report anything that's negative news and put that at the top of the agenda, and it's going to be pretty practical to sort of know what what these vaccines are about. And like you said, Terry, we're going to have to decide if we're going to get it or not, and maybe eventually might even not decide ourselves if we're going to get it or not. It might be compulsory to go overseas, and you want to go on a holiday, well, you got to get the vaccine. So very, very interesting topic, and we're going to fill in the listeners with a bit of info.
That's it. Let's get started. So what is the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine? Well, it's actually made from a weakened version of the common cold virus known as the adenovirus from chimpanzees. Well, if you believe in evolution, then it's, I guess, basically getting it off our cousins, the chimps. It has been modified to look more like a coronavirus, although it doesn't cause illness. So once it's injected, it teaches the body's immune system how to fight the real virus, should it need to, which is interesting. And unlike the other popular vaccine going around, which is the Pfizer jab, which actually needs to be kept at negative or minus 70 degrees, the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine can be stored in a normal fridge. So it's actually much easier to distribute. And I'd say the logistics of it would be quite simpler, and probably why you've heard a lot more of people getting the AstraZeneca vaccine. So just a bit of a tidbit, I've actually got a friend who's a doctor that just got injected with the AstraZeneca. And I've heard a few other people that it's just been AstraZeneca, a lot more here in Australia. I'm not too sure what it's like worldwide. Potentially in America, they're more so with the Pfizer. And it depends as well if your country actually manufactures this vaccine, because obviously, it's probably... Well, it's actually unrealistic for one particular country to make the vaccines for the world. Maybe if they distribute the recipe, they just can make it in their own country. It's not like it's like you're cooking up a storm or whatever. When I mention recipe, it's just a few ingredients or whatever concoctions they like to use.
Maybe.
Exactly. Maybe KFC should make some vaccines as well. They're all good at fighting those secret herbs and spices. Let me just quickly go through how it actually works, Sam, because I think you were just about to ask that question. So how it works. So step one, scientists take genes from the spike protein on the surface of the coronavirus and put them into a harmless virus to make a vaccine. So basically, they're taking the spikes. So if you just try and think about it, guys, I don't know if you've ever seen, I guess, a depiction of what a coronavirus looks like, but it basically looks like a ball with spikes on it.
Yeah.
So what they do is they take the spike, well, they take genes from this spike protein, just a little bit from it, and they put it into a harmless virus. It's just another harmless virus, and they use that to make the vaccine. Thereafter, this is then injected into the patient, right? So then step 2, the vaccine enters the cells, which then start to produce spike proteins. So basically, there's a vaccine that they're making, this AstraZeneca vaccine, actually teaches your body to just make this harmless spike protein in your body. Right. Yep. Which is a little bit foreign to our body. So our body doesn't recognize this spike protein, but it's not coronavirus. It's just a harmless virus that has spike protein. So every vaccine does inject you with something foreign. Something, I guess I wouldn't say it's bliss or pleasant. It's probably more harmful side of things, but not enough to obviously cause any harm. It enters our body and it produces spike proteins, but it's not coronavirus. It's just another type of harmless spike proteins. Then the body's immune system reacts to this thinking, what the hell is this thing? What are these spikes? Jeez. So then the body produces antibodies and activates T cells to destroy anything that has spike proteins. So anything with spikes, then the body's like, oh, there you go. I see you. You're a spike protein. I'm going to get rid of you with my T cells. So then T cells and the antibodies start destroying these spike proteins. So it's educating our bodies. If you ever come across a spike protein, destroy the fuckers.
Yeah, right.
Then,
interesting, yeah.
Yeah, it is. Then the third step is, I guess, if the patient ever catches coronavirus later down the track, those antibodies and T cells are triggered to fight the virus because they've been educated. Every time you see a spike protein, kill them. So it's actually quite an ingenious vaccine to educate the body that anything spiky, let's kill it. But I guess the flip side is, Sam, and I'm not a scientist and I'm not too sure. I mean, we tried getting a scientist on this episode, but they're in a bit of deliberation at the moment, so we don't want any bias on this episode because Turning Stones podcast always calls it down the middle. But I'm just thinking, are there any spike proteins out there that are actually good for us? I'm not sure. Maybe it's a question we have to ask later down the track. Maybe it's a question that hasn't been asked that hopefully a scientist can maybe DM us on, Twitter or Instagram at TurnstonesPod, or even in the comments section in YouTube. Make sure you subscribe. That if there ain't any positive spike proteins out there, because we don't want to be getting rid of those ones.
Yeah.
We don't want something where it's getting, it could be one of those things where it just gets rid of the good and bad.
True.
Chemotherapy does, and all these other drugs out there. So
this is probably quite similar to the common flu shot then, Terry. Is that right?
Yeah, essentially.
Yeah. Okay.
And you know what, Sam, just thinking about it, it could be one of those things where later down the track, what's the timeline on these, I guess, these vaccines? I mean, we're going to cover it a little bit later. So maybe just throw it back to you and let us know exactly, does it work, Sam?
Well, I can let you know that we can definitely get you some figures there, Terry. That's for sure.
Yeah, yes, please.
Obviously the trials. I mean, you're not going to roll out a vaccine without any trials. That's for sure. Even no matter how much research and development you do into these things, I think there's still going to be a minority or even a large amount of people that think, they're still doubting whether it's going to be effective or not, which fair enough. You can have your own opinion. So we're just going to tell you the facts, though. We're not going to provide any 5G conspiracy theories at this stage, but we'll roll out some figures. There were large trials on the Pfizer vaccine, which was 95% effective, apparently. So it's pretty big numbers there. While the figure for the Oxford vaccine was 62%. So you might think that, there's a big discrepancy there. And, if you had to choose, well, based on that, you'd just be like, all right, well, of course I'm going the Pfizer.
Exactly.
It'd be silly not to. But directly comparing results, it's pretty difficult to do because there's differences in the way the trials were carried out, which I guess, could be to maybe sway people to go towards one over the other, I guess. At the end of the day, they're going to try to sell you a product. It's a vaccine, but they're going to have to try to sell products. So if they can make theirs look better than the competition, well, they're going to sell more vaccines, aren't they? So
unfortunately, it wasn't really an even playing field.
Yes,
which is a bit unfortunate because, I mean, if it was an even playing field, then those statistics might be a lot more true and correct. So yeah, I wouldn't read too much into it. So not only is there a difference in the effectiveness, but which kind of patients were they dealing with?
That's right.
And those in the clinical trials, like they could have, one could have been just dealing with the elderly, the others could have been dealing with some young, fit, healthy, I guess humans. So and it could have been on animals too. Like who knows what they were bloody doing?
Exactly, and you could have had someone with pre-existing respiratory issues or things like that. You don't know. They could have had pretty low immune system, and it didn't work for them. But anyway, pretty interesting note as well, Terry. No one who received the Oxford vaccine was hospitalised or became seriously ill due to COVID. So that's
a really good sign.
Yeah, pretty big tick there. And a recent study found a single dose of the Oxford vaccine offered 76% protection for 3 months. And this went up to 82% after a second dose. So obviously the Oxford vaccine, you need a second dose to sort of give you a bit of a booster. But I mean, hey, I'm liking that 82% figure. I'd take that. I mean, you can't guarantee anything in life, I suppose, apart from death and taxes. But
exactly.
You'd take 82% on the roulette wheel any day of the week. So pretty good there.
Death, taxes, and actually there's a third one now. Some good quality ear candy from Turning Stones podcast.
Yep.
That's probably the third guarantee in life now. Established in 2020, and we're going strong over a year into it.
Yep.
Loving it. Yeah, and you know what? Maybe we should make a third vaccine, Sam. Maybe just like a shot of scotch or,
I think you have a few of those every weekend anyway.
I mean, that sort of kicks me into gear and gets the immune system pumping. Or maybe necking a beer. So, good old West End red tinny. Scull one of those, make sure they're ice cold. And after that, you actually feel kind of good. I mean, if you do too many of those jabs of the red tinnies, then I don't think you'll feel that great the next day. So maybe the effectiveness would be quite low after you've had too many. Only just a couple of jabs of that one, and you think you'll be nice and dandy. But thanks for that, Sam. So how long will it protect me for if I'm to get this Oxford AstraZeneca?
Yeah, well, that's an interesting note, and I guess this is where it's a bit of a it's a bit blurry. It's not yet known how long protection is going to last for any of these vaccines, not just the Oxford or the Pfizer. We're not sure how long it's going to last. A study found that unvaccinated people though, who have had COVID, develop protection for at least 6 months, and vaccines are likely to provide stronger protection than this. So. It's looking like it could be a decent amount of time, but it could be like the flu shot. We could have to have it every year. I don't know. Maybe they'll develop it to do every second year. I'm not sure how they'll do it. But it's looking like at this stage it's probably going to be an annual thing. But I guess Terry, probably the most important thing now is to try to convince people that that they have to get this vaccine. And I guess there's, like I said, there's always going to be people that don't want to get the vaccine. Personally, I'm not really fussed. Like, I'm not in a hurry to run out and get it because I don't think I'm really at a high risk level, or even being in Australia, I don't think we're really at high risk at the moment. So I'm happy to wait it out. But I'll be interested to see how people's opinions change on the actual jab itself. And some people don't even get the flu shot because they think that it's a bit of a load of rubbish. But I don't know. I don't know what to think about that, because I've had the flu shot plenty of times, and I mean, I haven't really got the flu. But then again, I've in previous years not had the flu shot and not got the flu. So it's like,
exactly.
What can you
It's basically potato.
Yeah, exactly.
Even though I didn't mean much, but I mean, look, great point, Sam. 100% agree with you. I'm not really fussed, but to be honest with you, if it's my turn and they gave me a call and I thought to myself, if I'm gonna get it eventually, stuff bloody rescheduling it for a later date where I have to wait, and maybe I need it at that point really badly to maybe go overseas or something like that. But look, I think I'm developing a lot more trust in the medical system, and especially in the Australia's medical system as well. Like we're probably been one of the most conservative countries during this pandemic. So not only have we got these viruses these vaccines from overseas, and then obviously started developing our own. But we've looked at the ingredients of all these vaccines and everything that's gone around and all the medication involved for COVID-19. So we've relied upon the testing that's been done from the labs overseas. But then we've also, before we've released it, we've also done our own testing too. So that's what gives me the extra greater confidence in what we're doing and what we're administering here. And also now, after doing a bit of research for this episode and even going through it, I just think that, scientists and doctors, they take, or those that are dealing with patients, they take the Hippocratic Oath. Like, they basically are in the business. Oh, yeah, of course, they're making a bit of money, a bit of coin out of it too. But they're in the business to obviously, heal humans and do everything that they can possible to improve the long. Is that a nice espresso there?
Yeah, it is.
Delicious. They're doing everything possible to, I guess, improve or prolong improve the longevity of humanity and the health. True. So I can't see too much corruption going on there. And you think about it, all right, Oxford and Pfizer will be making a bit of coin out of it, but it's costing the governments a lot of money because in Australia I know 100% that it's for free. These vaccines, so it's at least costing the government money. So I'm pretty sure if there was a bit of dodgy business going on, the government would know about it or would want to know about it, and they wouldn't want to pay any extra cent to you. So I mean, it's like a tax return. If you do a few dodgies in there and you get a bit more of a refund, the government might raise a bit of flags. They don't want to give you any more than they should, and the same thing with us. We don't want to give them any more than they should. That's why you got to hire a good tax accountant who's chartered accountant.
That's it. Spot on, Terry.
So just quickly, Sam, before we get into the juicy conspiracies of it all and obviously what's been going on in the media lately, which vaccine will I get if I choose to get it?
Well, you actually don't get a choice at the moment. That's at the moment, but you don't have a choice. You rock up, I guess, and whatever they've maybe got on the day or whatever they feel like will be more effective on you, they just jab that in your arm, Terry, and you're just on your way. So interesting if they're going to continue with that, because maybe people might prefer one over the other. But then again, if you're not a medical expert and not specialising in the field, I don't think you've really got much to say about the matter, because I mean, at the end of the day, there's probably 100 different flu vaccines that you get every year. They're probably all different brands and stuff, and you don't even know about it. So I don't think it's too much of an issue. But obviously, with what's been in the news, I think it's going to really, really want to, it's going to change people's sort of opinion on that, and they really will want to steer away from a certain vaccine, which we're talking about today. So Terry, why don't you tell us why there was a halt on the vaccine? Because we've heard in the media there was a halt in this Oxford vaccine. They rolled it out, and then all of a sudden they said, "All right, stop it." But obviously the media doesn't cover it much. They don't cover the specifics much. They tell us that it's been halted, but let's get into that.
Yeah, let's do it. So several European countries, and those including Norway, Denmark, the Netherlands, Ireland, even Germany, they suspended the rollout of the AstraZeneca vaccine following concerns about deep vein thrombosis, pulmonary embolism, and blood clotting. So I'm sure that there's been a fair few people out there that are listening to this episode that have heard about this as well. So according to AstraZeneca, there have been 15 instances of deep vein thrombosis and 22 events of pulmonary embolism reported among more than 17 million people vaccinated in the European Union and the UK. So we're just basically dealing around the Europe continent and obviously the UK. So you think about it, that's 37 cases out of 17 million people, Sam.
Yeah.
That actually equates to 0.000217%. Or, just to put it a bit more into layman's terms, for every 1 million people that get vaccinated, only 2 will see some sort of effect of this. Right.
Jeez,
according to these statistics, which is very, very low. Yeah. So I just thought I'd throw a few other fun facts in there for you. You've actually got a greater chance of a dog attack in life, being a 1 in 86,781 chance of being attacked by a dog. And that's according to the US 2019 study by the US Census Bureau. Or you've actually got a greater chance on choking on food. So you got a 1 in 2,535 chance choking on food. Yeah, right. So the reason why I put those two little statistics there is that a lot of people have dogs as pets, and pretty much everyone eats food. So you've actually got a greater chance at having issues either having a dog as a pet or eating food than you do catching some sort of deep vein thrombosis or blood clotting with AstraZeneca. But who's to say it's linked to the vaccine, Sam?
Well, that's right.
And just going off this, which the media has really just worried about, there's been 27 issues, blood clotting, and that's not great at all, whereas Pfizer's had nothing. Then all of a sudden people are like, are we prepared to take this risk? But then you're looking at it compared to the 17 million that are being vaccinated. Well, 0.000217%.
Yeah.
That's
pretty good
stuff all, man. That's pretty good. It seems pretty fair and reasonable. The likelihood of you developing heart disease or cancer is so much more higher. It's interesting. But, what is deep vein thrombosis or DVT or pulmonary embolism? Let me just quickly go through them just to enlighten the stoners, whether you're watching us or you're listening to us. So basically, sometimes blood clots can develop in a blood vessel, often in a leg, due to the reduced circulation. So those that sit down a lot. So when these clots develop, the condition is named or known as deep vein thrombosis. If one of these blood clots breaks off and travels, they may become lodged in a blood vessel, blocking blood supply to an organ, which is not great.
No.
When this blockage occurs, it's called an embolism. So anything to do pulmonary, so the word pulmonary, that's related to the lungs.
Right.
So a pulmonary embolism occurs when a blood clot blocks one of the arteries going from the heart to the lungs.
Right.
So this is pretty serious and potentially life-threatening because it can affect oxygen levels to the lungs and cause lung damage. So one of the biggest ingredients we need in life is oxygen, and to get them into those lungs in and out. That's pretty life-threatening and quite damaging. So the best way they say to avoid blood clotting and these related conditions is to maintain a healthy weight, stay active, keep hydrated with water, which I'm just about to do now. Keep hydrated with water, avoid smoking, and avoid sitting for long periods of time. So I'm just going to quickly get up and
stand up.
Stretch.
Well, actually, deep vein thrombosis, Terry, that's why they tell you on long international plane trips to get up and walk around in the cabin, because I think that's one of the most common places you can actually develop deep vein thrombosis, because you're sitting down for say 10 hours. So and I think it's got something to do with the altitude as well, maybe.
Yeah, because of the oxygen levels too.
Yeah. So it's it's not uncommon, and it does happen, and obviously there are reasons why it happens. So you've
made a fantastic point there, Sam, actually, especially on long-haul flights. If anyone's traveled for, let's say between 10 and 20 hours on a plane, you will notice after you actually get off the plane, maybe even for the next 24 hours, you actually develop cankles because all the blood flow has gone to your feet.
That's right.
Because you've been sitting in a standard position. You haven't been lying down unless you're one of those wealthy individuals that can afford first or business class or premium class or whatever those classes are, because you can lie down and obviously the circulation just gets to circulate throughout your body, whereas when you're sitting down in like a chair position like we are now, the blood is going to go all to your feet. So if that occurs for too long, then that's not great either. So if you're on a flight, go to the piss every now and then and go a bit of a walk around. Don't look suspicious where you're looking like you're going to break into the cockpit or anything. Don't be one of those rubbish delinquents out there. But so you can develop this even if you're active. But you got to go on long haul flights, and a lot of us haven't been on a long haul flight for a long time. No excuse there. Sam, we've gone through, I guess, why there was a halt on the vaccine and what is DVT and what is a pulmonary embolism and what is the clotting and how damaging it is. Now the question we're all asking, and the media's asking, is the AstraZeneca vaccine causing these issues? Is it, Sam?
Yeah, well, I think that's the main question you should really be asking here. And again, the media don't really ask those questions. They just want to promote some scare tactics and
assholes.
Push the agendas that they want to be publicised. But according to a statement from AstraZeneca, the rate of deep vein thrombosis and pulmonary embolism across millions of people vaccinated is much lower than would be expected to occur naturally in a general population. So, they're standing by their product. Now, the AstraZeneca Chief Medical Officer, Ian Taylor, said the nature of the pandemic has led to increased attention in individual cases, and we're going beyond the standard practices for safety monitoring of licensed medicines in reporting vaccine events to ensure public safety. So they're pretty much saying they go into, pretty serious lengths to make sure that it's safe.
Extreme lengths.
Yeah, extreme lengths. And and they've said that they've done additional testing at the moment as well, but also independently by European health authorities. They're carrying out some testing as well to see if it's the cause.
You know what the funny thing was, Sam, is that certain countries, like Norway, Germany, Denmark, the Netherlands and Ireland, they all suspended the vaccine when these issues arise, but yet throughout the whole ordeal, the European Medical Association still maintained that it was safe. So you had the national health authorities saying in those countries saying, nah, let's just stop it and do a bit more testing. But the European says that we continue to do testing, batch testing, and then even specific testing.
Right.
And they still maintained the opinion that it was safe. And then obviously, I guess now it's rolled back out. They've all basically resumed and revoked the suspension of these vaccines, and it's continuing to be administered. But they maintained that same opinion throughout the whole deal that it's pretty safe to do so. And it's good that I guess Ann Taylor from AstraZeneca, who the chief medical officer, so the CMO, she said that we're going to extreme lengths to ensure public safety. But of course, isn't it funny these days, Sam, that before when we're getting the flu shots, right, we didn't know what brand of flu there was, but now we know there's a Pfizer vaccine for COVID.
Exactly,
we know that there's an Oxford basically vaccine for COVID. We also know there's a Johnson & Johnson one, which is
exactly
the one jab only one. So we know the brands and we know the ins and outs. Like we're becoming really invested into the medical space. And you know what, rightly so. Not only should they be transparent with what they're doing and what they're giving us, but also it's good for us to know a little bit about what we're getting as well. It's good to see that we're a bit more health conscious with our lives and with our bodies because, you know what, as a wise man once said, actually the wise man, I'm going to give him a shout out, Rocco DeAngelis from Rocco's Pizza, who was on a previous episode of ours. He always says, treat the body like a Ferrari. He goes, would you give your body rubbish, unleaded fuel? No, you wouldn't. You'd give it the premium unleaded. You'd give it the highest octane fuel possible. So you'd always give it the good fuel to operate, to operate the mechanism, to operate the machine effectively. So shout out to you, Rocco, and you make a mean sourdough pizza.
Yeah, spot on, Terry. Well said. And of course, media are going to focus on negative points anyway. So we should be doing a bit of research ourselves, and we've done that for the listeners. And obviously, we're just providing the facts and not an agenda.
Exactly.
Now, obviously, we're talking about Europe and what's going on in Europe with this vaccine halt. But what about Australia? So Australian regulators have said that. This is the Therapeutic Goods Administration, so TGA, have said
TGA.
A link between blood clots and the AstraZeneca vaccine has not been confirmed. Blood clots can occur naturally and are not uncommon, which is true. It's not, they're not making these things up. Prime Minister ScoMo, or Scott Morrison,
Scotty,
he said the TGA does its own batch testing of the vaccines as well, and it looks at data from overseas. So, they're grabbing a lot of data and obviously making their own decisions. So, it's interesting because you think about even the flu shot, Terry. Like, how many people say that, whenever I get the flu shot, I end up getting sick, or I end up getting this or whatever. Now, if that was the case, then why aren't they pulling that from the shelf as well then? If that is so bad. So, I don't know, you could get the flu jab and then coincidentally, I don't know, you go out and you go to a bar or something and someone there's got a virus, so you contract the virus and then you get it and then you think, you just draw the line because you had that injection. Well, no, you went out and you caught a virus. Like, it's not going to change it. So
100% spot on, Sam. Couldn't have said it better myself. Yeah. So why did we never overreact to the flu shot?
Yeah. So that's
ridiculous.
It's a bit of a question mark there. So obviously it's getting a lot of media attention and coronavirus is a lot bigger than, or a bigger issue than the flu, as they want to tell us. I don't know whether it is or not. We'll maybe flick to some of our previous episodes on coronavirus. But
absolutely.
Terry, do we have any expert opinions? I'm sure we've got some experts throwing some facts to us as well.
Yeah, we do. Well, given that you said, or you've basically enlightened us what the Australian regulators have said, especially the TGA and even ScoMo, Scott Morrison, he's an absolute lad of a prime minister. I don't get into the politics space, but when you've got a leader of a country who can just do what the standard man does and goes to the footy and drinks a beer, good on you. Yeah. Good on you. So we thought we've obviously heard from AstraZeneca themselves. We've obviously heard from the countries that have rolled them out, whether it's the European Medical Association or the TGA in Australia. But now let's get an independent expert, shall we? Because we want some unbiased information here, because that's what we do at the Turning Stones. We look at both sides. We do form an opinion, but of course, we try to give you the most unbiased facts possible and readily available out there. And of course, those from the alternate media as well, because the standard media always tries to portray a certain narrative that suits their particular position. So what about an independent expert? Well, I've picked Professor Gerald Fitzgerald, or Jared Fitzgerald, should I say. He's from the Queensland University of Technology. So he said that countries that suspended the AstraZeneca vaccine rolled out, they actually acted with extreme caution, which is not a bad thing to do. So basically, those countries that suspended the vaccine, they thought they were extra cautious. Let's just do some extra tests before we resume the vaccine rollout again, because obviously some of these issues are concerning the public, and let's just inject a bit more. Well, no pun intended. Let's just inject a bit more confidence into the public. And he said that it's very important to remember blood clots are extremely common, as what the TGA just said, and were so before the vaccines even existed. So it's not like deep vein thrombosis has just become a new illness that's occurred, or blood clotting that's occurred, or pulmonary embolism that's just started happening because of these vaccines. No, they've been fairly common, and they existed before the vaccines rolled out. And he even said, in quotes, for example, the CDC, or the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention in the US, reports 60 to 100,000 deaths per year from lung blood clots. And this obviously data has occurred before COVID-19 pandemic has even started. So once again, quoting Jared Fitzgerald, Professor Jared Fitzgerald, these are more common again in the elderly and those with chronic disease, who are actually the target of the early vaccination programs.
There you go.
So we need to keep this risk in perspective. So just to put it into simpler terms, guys, those that are more susceptible or likely to get deep vein thrombosis or blood clotting occurs with the elderly. Not being ageist or anything, but the elderly are more susceptible to getting DVT and blood clotting. And guess what? Who are the first to be getting the vaccines worldwide? Well, guess what? It's the elderly. So if you actually put two and two together, there's actually a strong correlation saying, hey, maybe it's not the vaccines. Maybe because the elderly are the ones getting the vaccines first, and they're the ones most likely to get DVT and blood clotting. Maybe that's the reason why certain issues have occurred. And really, looking back at the numbers before, Sam, 37 cases in 17 million doses. I mean, come on.
Yeah. I mean, I'm surprised it's not higher than that, to be honest. Now looking at that, honestly, I didn't, I sort of found out about this like everyone else did, with the media just saying, headlines basically, AstraZeneca vaccine causing blood clots. It's been pulled from the shelves and pulled from, Europe and stuff. But that's all I knew about it, because that's all they were sort of telling you.
Yeah.
Until you actually.
Bit of clickbait there. Absolute bullshit.
Yeah, and until you actually look into it, I mean, hey, when I first saw it, don't get me wrong, I was like, oh my God, like this is ridiculous. Like obviously they've rushed in this vaccine, they haven't done enough testing, this and that, all these things go through your head. And of course, the media is going to want to push that to get people, revved up, people sharing it on social media, protesting at bloody Parliament House probably these days. That's all they want to do.
Yeah, exactly. Gluing themselves to the street and buildings.
Yeah, absolute morons.
Yeah.
Maybe we could glue a brain inside their head. It'd be great. But yeah, it's just pretty poor on the media's behalf. And Terry, question for you maybe the media has a bit of a hidden agenda that, I don't know, maybe they're tied in with Pfizer. Maybe they want to push Pfizer. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know what, media corporations are associated with pharmaceuticals, but I don't know, maybe they're getting some money on the table, and Pfizer are saying, hey, can we just really push the agenda here and just say that this AstraZeneca vaccine is no good and causing issues, so we can pump our sales up. So I don't know.
That's a good point there, Sam. So yeah, basically Pfizer could be paying a few brown paper bags under the table to some of these media outlets and rubbishing the AstraZeneca so they can push the Pfizer a bit more. And it's potentially the same thing with Coke and Pepsi. How people get endorsed to promote one over the other, or sometimes someone say, "Oh, don't drink this Coca-Cola batch from February 2021 because there was a mouse found in the tanks, dead mouse, so we have to pull them all off the shelves." But who's to say that's true or not? We don't know. And the same thing that goes with these vaccines. We've obviously got a spokesman, a spokeswoman, should I say, Anne Taylor from AstraZeneca, the chief medical officer. We've heard what the Australia regulators have said. We've heard what Europe have said, who have suspended it, because the US and Australia did not suspend it during this ordeal. So just want to put that out there. We've heard what Australia, Europe have said. We've even heard what an independent professor has even said about it as well. So all signs are pointing to that it's safe, and it seems like it's relatively effective. And the likelihood, even if these statistics might not even be true, Sam, which, because the elderly are susceptible to getting DVT and blood clotting, who's to say that they're even from the vaccine anyway? We still cannot even establish a link. And even if there is a link, Sam, 37 and 17 million people, it's still relatively low. And I think that's a risk that the world's willing to take at this point.
Yeah, spot on.
So even let's just look at it from the worst perspective. It's 37 in 17 million people. If I'm the leader of a country, those 37 people haven't died, by the way.
No, that's right. Yeah.
So that's a risk I'm willing to take to get the world back into some sort of normality. So
Well, and also, Terry, I don't think we should. Well, personally, I'm not saying that these vaccines are completely safe, especially long term. I don't know, because I still think there could be, maybe some issues in the long run with this stuff that hasn't been tested. Don't take us the wrong way. We're not promoting these vaccines saying they're completely safe, because I've got no, I might have some faith in them, but I don't know. How do I know in 10, 20 years after taking this for a long period of time that I'm not going to develop, some kind of disease, or not disease, or I don't know, maybe a bit of dementia or something like that. You don't know.
Maybe you could be growing like a third nipple or something, just something really weird like that.
That's right. You don't know. So it's just interesting how they've developed this pretty quickly. I mean, it's been just over 12 months, or maybe a bit longer, since this COVID situation escalated. And all of a sudden they've got this, not just one vaccine, they've got all these vaccines ready to pump to the market. So you look at things like cancer and that, well, how come you haven't got, something to cure certain types of cancer, rather than, people dying every year and every day of cancer. So, and that's been around for, hundreds of years. So I just don't understand how they can sort of push this in within a year and not really have a lot of testing behind it. But that being said, at the moment, we can't see anything sort of wrong with it. So what can we do?
Exactly. And you know what, Sam? You may have made a bit of an error before in your wording, but you did correct yourself, right? You said the AstraZeneca virus. Sorry, I mean the AstraZeneca vaccine.
I did,
Was that like a bit of a subtle message there for the stoners? You throwing a bit of a conspiracy out there?
Yeah, maybe they can translate that themselves if it was or not, but I'm not sure. I'm not going to comment on that. I'm not going to be sued by AstraZeneca for making false claims.
Yeah, well, no. I mean, you're entitled to your own opinion, and we've gone through the facts as unbiased as we could, calling it down the middle. And I think, after today's episode, I think everyone's a little bit more confident with the AstraZeneca vaccine. And you know what? If I had to get one tomorrow, you know what? I don't give a shit what you give me, just whatever. Pfizer, AstraZeneca, anything that's been approved by the TGA in Australia. If it's good enough for ScoMo, guess what? It's bloody good enough for me. And you know what? Just to inject a bit more confidence in Europe, Boris Johnson, UK Prime Minister, on the 19th of March, just only a few days removed from that, he actually just said to the country, he said to not only, I guess, his citizens there, but also to the rest of the world, hey, you know what? I believe in the AstraZeneca. I think it was an overreaction from the media.
And
some of the countries that, suspended the rollout. How about I get a jab, rolled his sleeve up, popped it.
Yeah.
Probably dies tomorrow.
I guess,
you know what? That's a really good thing from a public figure to do something like that. So, what better way to do it and to obviously make your country and even the world a bit more confident than just take one for the team and get it and just obviously reaffirm that it's safe. And I guess even if it's not effective, there still aren't any cons or negative aspects to it.
Exactly, yeah. Very true. And one more question for you, Terry. That's the last question I got. So obviously we've got a lot of these skeptics that don't want to take the the vaccine. I don't have a problem with that. Like, if people don't want to take it, they don't want to take it. It's up to them. I think people should be entitled to their own choice to take it or not. But obviously the government wants to sort of push taking the vaccine because we don't want to have another repeat of this COVID-19 situation where it just shuts down economies and wrecks everything. How are we going to get people to change their opinion, or how are we going to sort of give them an incentive to take the vaccine in Australia? Say, do we have to give them a carton of beer for going and get the jab, or what do you reckon?
Well, I think two things. We've already done the first one. We've enlightened the stoners out there to have a bit more extra confidence in this particular vaccine, AstraZeneca. So if you get it now, I think after this episode that people have either listened or watched, right, they know more about the AstraZeneca than they do with the Pfizer. So right now, just in this space, I know more about AstraZeneca than I do Pfizer. So I actually wouldn't mind getting the AstraZeneca, even though it's had bad publicity. But now it's, every country's still using it again. Australia's making their own version of the AstraZeneca, which is the exact same, but we're just making it here locally. To support your local. And so, I know a lot more about it. And obviously, there's only been 37 in 17 million issues, and it's pretty much common along the elderly. And those are getting it right now are the elderly. So how can we, I guess, push it to the public to have more confidence and get the jabs? Well, first and foremost, listen to Turning Stones podcast. That's a number one. And number two, I actually think, especially with the males, if you get some hot nurses that are administering the jabs, you definitely want to swing past and have a bit of a look. Of course, no touching and no verbal or physical harassment, please. But there's a bit of banter there when you get the jab. So that could be one way. And then also, I think the other way as well is just to maintain the safety of the country. I think, it's not going to force us to do it because you have a choice to go overseas or not. But I think if you're going overseas, maybe not going, but coming back, you either have the option to do 2 weeks quarantine, or you can come back into the country and live normally if you've had the vaccine.
Right. Yeah, that's true. That's good.
So you might have the option still to travel, but it'll be like, oh, come back into Australia, even if you're a citizen or not. Have you had the jab? No. Well, guess what? 2 weeks quarantine. Have you had the jab? Well, yes. Well, you know what? We just want you to have a test 72 hours before your flight. Test and come back in. You've had the vaccine. Go back to live normal life. I think that's probably what's going to happen. So once borders open up here back in Australia, I still think it's going to be a 2 week quarantine unless you've had vaccinations and maybe a negative test, whether it's just as you land or just before you come here.
It's probably a good idea anyway, because you can't really restrict people from traveling overseas if they haven't had a vaccine. That's probably a bit of a breach of human rights, really, anyway. So no, that's a good idea, Terry. Honestly,
so there's probably going to be a bit of incentive there too if you got the vaccine. I still think you can live normal life and do the normal things. It just be that might get a bit of a I guess a streamlined approach in doing things if you had the vaccine. So it'd be interesting. But look, after this, Sam, I'm not sure about you, but I'll ask you just after this comment here that I've got a bit more confidence in this particular vaccine in itself. And also now I've sort of brushed away any doubts I've had over this and what the media have speculated after going through the facts, going through what AstraZeneca have said, what the governments have said, and even what an independent expert have said. Of course, we don't know what the long-term effects are, if any, or even if it lasts long-term, because it's one of those things you need yearly for a top-up. So if it doesn't last long term, it's probably good because there's not going to be any long term effects.
True.
Sam, thoughts overall, just to finish up?
Yeah, a bit like you, Terry. Yeah, I definitely think I've got a bit more confidence in the AstraZeneca vaccine, and like I said, I just did not have much idea of what the issue was, and if this vaccine was actually directly linked to these issues that were being sort of pushed through the media. So I think it's fine. I mean, I'd jab, I'd take the jab if I had to. At the moment, I'm not in a rush, whatever. But hey, I mean, if, like you said, if you're going to go overseas, say probably next year now, but if you're going to go overseas and have to quarantine for 14 days or get the jab, well, I'll probably take the jab because I'm not going to waste 2 weeks of annual leave to sit at home and do nothing. And I think we've had enough lockdowns and things like that. So I'm pretty confident in it now. But long-term effects, question mark still. We'll have to cover that maybe in a few years, Terry.
Yeah, spot on, Sam. Really appreciate you joining me today again, as always. But of course, you're on the Turning Stones podcast studio. How's the studio going? I haven't been there for ages, and obviously we're trying to keep our social distance just for the optics of the public and society, just so we're doing the right thing.
Yeah,
how's it going down there?
Aircon's a bit shocking today. It's a bit warm in here, but we'll have to get the maintenance guys out.
That's right.
But these lights just running 24/7 in the background, so this electricity bill, tell you what, we're gonna have to get solar.
I actually heard that one of the maintenance guys came a few weeks ago, one of the electrician guys, and he broke the bloody French press. What a dickhead!
Oh, geez, I was filthy. Yeah, he did, and we haven't got a replacement since. So I'm pretty filthy with that.
He didn't charge us though, so I guess it was sort of like break it, but then we're not paying your invoice either, mate.
True. Nah, well, I was filthy with that, but that's right. We'll go out and buy one.
100%. Guys, thank you very much. Make sure you follow us on Instagram and Twitter at TurnStonesPod. Make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube. Just type in Turning Stones Podcast. And also hit us up. Give us a bit of a DM. If you want a Turning Stones mug, honestly, probably one of the best things you ever get. Especially in today's day and age. It's the year of investing. Why not invest yourself with some quality mugware? It's probably the best thing you can actually drink your coffee out of.
Easter coming up too. Easter gift.
100%. Yeah. Why not actually?
Yeah.
Guys, how about this? If you buy a Turning Stones mug from us between now and Easter, not only will we give it to you, pretty post-haste, but we'll also throw in some Easter eggs in there as well. How about that?
Done. Yep. All right, Terry.
Hit us up. DM, Turning Stones mug. They're the best things you actually buy this year. They do the job. Fuck yeah.